Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, the time has come, Peter. It's the end of the week when we're handing out our thumbs ups and thumbs downs, and many people are dreading this moment. Well, it's irreversible. The moment has come. All right, I'll go first. Thumbs down, as per usual. Nancy Pelosi's appointment of a select committee into investigating the events of January the 6th. Drum roll. And it's all being reported as if this is a serious committee. On this committee, there are 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans, which is very kind of strange because the Democrat majority is very, very slim in the House, but 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans. And among the moderates that Pelosi has hired for this committee are our friend Adam Schiff, the master of impeachment 1, and then what was his name? Ryerson, the master of impeachment 2. And then she decides, well, she's going to appoint a Republican. And so she appointed Liz Cheney as a Republican onto that committee. And Liz Cheney said, I would be honored to serve. So the terms of reference to this committee are already to investigate this domestic terrorist attack. It's already said that. So therefore, they already know ahead of time what they're dealing with, namely a domestic terrorist attack, which
now they're going to prove it was.
They're going to prove it, exactly. So we have all these 500 plus trials that are supposed to be ahead. And then we have this this committee, plus you've got the Department of Justice still investigating domestic terrorism. The Democrats intend to milk this all the way through to the 2022 midterms.
Well, that dovetails into my first thumbs down. George, you got to really admire these people. They're so busy with the January 6th insurrection that they had time to arrest the CFO of the Trump organization. Yes. These people know how to multitask, okay? I mean, these people are adroit. They can chew gum and walk at the same time. I'm in awe of these people.
Okay. Amazingly impressive. Yes.
And interestingly enough, the CFO, it's basically because of perks that he garnered being working for the Trump organization. I may be wrong, and maybe someone can correct me in the comments if necessary, but I don't think, at least in New York State, no one has ever been arrested, cuffed, and perp walked for such an offense. This is something that is dealt with fines. That is what, and so, Cy Vance Jr., not as bright as his father, apparently, really disgraces himself after all the money you spent, 3 million documents or something like that. That's what you got? Free parking? Really?
Yeah.
But of course, this is on the same level as loitering.
That's it. Yep. So, exactly, free parking and all of these perks, like, he was using a free apartment. Well, I don't know. It may be a business expense. I mean, I don't know if his home is a long way from the office. Maybe he needs a home there. Either way, this is a matter for the IRS to deal with. If somehow they're avoiding paying taxes somehow, that's an IRS matter rather than bringing this 15-count felony indictment, which is just ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous overcharging.
But you know what this says also is that apparently, and much to my surprise, to be honest with you, the Trump organization is pretty squeaky clean.
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, what they have done is, in a sense, they've really exonerated the Trump organization more than anything else.
Right. Yeah.
Free parking, an apartment, helping his grandkids with it.
Grandkids.
Oh, these are nefarious things here. This strikes at the very heart of the republic. Okay, it's ludicrous. These people are so incompetent. Okay, you're out.
So the next one is the European Union that is now absolutely determined to wage war against Viktor Orban. We had the Dutch Prime Minister declaring to Orban's face the other day at one of these EU summits that if you don't accept European values, then you have to leave the EU. So that's the orders that have been handed down. But it now seems like this is causing an absolute reaction within Europe. So you now have a statement that has been issued jointly by Orban, Salvini in Italy, Le Pen in France, basically saying Europe has to respect tradition, culture, national differences, and family, and all of the things that the new European superstate is simply showing its contempt for. So the EU, in exerting this imperialism of values, is kind of shooting itself in the foot.
Well, diversity is fine as long as you don't have a different opinion.
Exactly. As long as you agree with me on everything, then I'm all for diversity. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but none of this should surprise whatsoever, because, we've said many times here in the Gaggle is that the European populations have never once been asked, do you want to have a super state? Yeah. They've never been asked. No, it just has this kind of organic movement that because it's the elites, it's the Brussels crowd, okay, six-figure incomes, palatial settings, and never forget those they're good at the brunches, they're good brunch people, okay. Wine in the shower. I mean, it's a gig, it's a grift, okay. But not once have Europeans been asked, do you want a super state?
Right.
Okay, maybe they should. We'll find out what people think.
As we talked about before, whenever they had a referendum, the referendum, when they had that constitution of Europe, and remember they had a referendum in France, the French voted against it. We don't want it. So the Europeans then slid it into the back door, like the Lisbon Treaty. But basically, you ask them, do you want this? And they say, no, we don't want it. I mean, do Hungarians want to be lectured by the Dutch? I mean, they say, well, we have a different,
Who are the Dutch to be lecturing us? No, but this is inevitable, and you're absolutely right. If you want to you really want to force this issue? Are you really think you're so confident you're going to win it? Yeah. Okay, what it does is other people say, well, now that you mention it, I've had a problem with this for years, and all it does is it coalesces, it creates a coalition of the unwilling. Right. Okay, so I mean, do these stupid things, incompetent things at your own peril. Okay, actually, I'm really quite pleased with it because it shows. Okay, but for people, culture matters. Maybe not for these elites. That's okay. But for maybe majorities, it does matter. That's right. Okay, so and it's pushing it to the fore and letting people, and we need to talk about it. They pretend it is so primitive and backward that not even worth our, we won't even deign to discuss it. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that's right, and that's why when he says, Orban said, we put family at the center of building block of society. Heresy. Yeah, exactly. And then which means that all these matters like homosexuality, transgender, everything, we leave that to families to decide what they want their children to know about and not. It's not going to be taken over by the state, which is all that is saying. Then other countries are going to say, yeah, that sounds reasonable. The French are pretty conservative people. Italians are pretty conservative people. They say, yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, it should be up to families, not up to the government to decide, what children are going to learn at what age.
Like I said, diversity is fine as long as you have one opinion, my opinion. Okay, I have a thumbs up here. This big stir that's going on in the U.S., Tucker Carlson and his claims that the NSA is eavesdropping, spying on him. Interesting that the NSA came out and responded with gobbledygook legalese, which there's a long history here. Now we go back to Snowden and WikiLeaks and all this. We know that the state is spying on its citizens here. Okay, so the sad thing about it, and it's a confirmation. I presume that the NSA spies on everyone, okay? Whether they're a target or not, again, they can use these weasel words all they want, okay? But the reaction to Tucker's claim is what's most important is that these liberals, they are just so deeply in love and in bed with the security apparatus, okay? What a remarkable change, and something you and I, It's startling. It's in a short amount of time.
Right.
Okay, the way they coddle. I mean, I think it was CNN. Tucker makes his claim, then CNN brings out 3 FBI people. Oh, of course, but no, more than that. I mean, come on. What a joke, okay? And it was Andy McCabe was one of them.
Right.
Okay, a liar. He got fired for the FBI for being a liar.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
in your lying experience is, come on.
Right. No,
It's just not serious, okay? It's not. But the serious issue is the surveillance state. That is serious, and I'm glad that Tucker brought it up, okay?
it's a very serious issue, the surveillance state. And the issue is, are they in the business of trying to destroy people politically, using all the powers of government by fabricating criminal cases, instigating incidents, instigating violence? That's very serious. I mean, we already saw what they did during the Trump years. So that's why the media responds, oh, Tucker Carlson, unproven conspiracy theory. Well, unproven. We have an entire record of what went on during the Trump years. We know what the revelations of Snowden, that's from 2013. So to still pretend, well, this is all unproven. The NSA doesn't spy on Americans.
You know what would have cleared that all up? If they had Carter Page on CNN.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember, you got up the page, everyone first of all denied that this happened. No, of course, no, that didn't happen. Wasn't based on the Steele dossier, then all these things come out. Well, anyway, but Carter Page, he was working for the Kremlin. He said so. So therefore, because he made visits to Russia, it was entirely appropriate to spy on him. So you keep moving your story. If you'd first deny that it ever happened, then you say, yeah, it happened, but Carter Page got what was coming to him. So watch the arc of this story as well.
Well, talking about arcs, I'm glad you brought it up, because you and I, in our lifetime, we as a society agreed, there was an overwhelming consensus that calling into question one's patriotism for their politics was wrong. Okay, that's exactly right. And we went from recovering from the McCarthy catastrophe. Right. A Good Night and Good Luck is a great film. You should watch that. Okay, Edward R. Murrow and fighting against the scourge of smearing people. But now the arc has come full circle. Okay, right. Now it is currency well accepted. Right. To just try to destroy someone by claiming they work for Russia. Look what they did to the Young Turks did to Aaron Mate. Disgusting behavior. These are progressives, okay? Right. And they peddle in McCarthyism.
That's right, the worst kind. Because even at the height of McCarthyism, they never accused Eisenhower himself of working for the Russians. They never accused basically the president of taking his orders from the Kremlin. But that's what they did during the Trump years. I mean, they kept asserting this, no evidence whatsoever that, oh, he's a traitor. He's working for the Kremlin. And this has become the norm. But what's interesting is really that the political establishment has changed from what it was in the 1950s. I think the FBI and the CIA probably haven't changed. They've just adjusted themselves to the new establishment. So when you have, what's the name? Is it Mark Milley? Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, as he's spouting forth this absolute rubbish that he's picked up from watching MSNBC about white rage and so on. You can say, okay, he basically knows who his masters are, and he's now orienting himself to who his masters are. So when he retires in a few years, he will be getting all sorts of fat corporate gigs, and he will have all of the right views. So we go probably Amazon will have him as a corporate director, and McDonnell Douglas or whatever. They'll have him. Right? He has all the right views. And he's our man. So it's just that the establishment has changed, but these organizations, they've just adjusted to that.
Yes, and they live off the fat of the land.
That's it, exactly. Extremely fat. Yes.
You're up.
Okay. So the next one is Remember, the U.S. Had filed that lawsuit against Georgia because Georgia had changed its election law. The idea was, oh, that this was racist, and so the Department of Justice. That was about a week ago. We even talked about it. They filed this lawsuit against Georgia, and then now the Supreme Court actually ruled that the election law of Arizona, if you're going to claim racism, you kind of have to provide some evidence for it. You can't just simply say that, IDs, require ID requirement is ipso facto racist. You have to actually prove that this has a distinct effect against minorities, just because something is difficult to get, ID or whatever it is. That doesn't mean that it's racist, and as I said, hey, going to vote on election day is a nuisance. You have to catch a bus or a train or whatever. You have to line for several hours. You can't, just say that, well, because of that, therefore it has to be racist. So now the DOJ looks kind of stupid. I mean, having filed this lawsuit, they have the Supreme Court basically saying, don't just parrot this phrase racist. You have to actually prove that it has, it's the intent is to harm minorities.
Well, then, with gasoline prices, then I'm not, Exxon, you're racist because it's more expensive. It's harder to get. Okay. I mean, this is just ridiculous what they're doing. Okay. It's such a common ploy, because at the end of the day, what they want to do, they want to nationalize elections. That's what they want to do. Okay. And they'll play these ridiculous games until they get what they want. Thankfully, it looks like it's not going to happen anytime soon. We'll see. All righty. A thumbs up. It's thumbs up and thumbs down at the same time. It's kind of a strange one. The collapse of the Julian Assange case. Okay, you and I did a separate video on this here. It's really quite remarkable. Again, it tells you a lot about a neoliberal mindset. Okay, we had Trump, we had Obama, which kind of was tepid about, the Washington Post effect, I mean, we can't go after him. The Trump administration, and now the Biden administration is continuing. The entire story, this Icelandic character, which I cannot pronounce his name correctly, was a stooge for the FBI. He was a sex offender, he was an embezzler, and he was doing this as an informant for the FBI all along, okay? He's been exposed for what he is. The entire case has collapsed. And now, but remarkably, Julian Assange stays in prison. And remarkably, the Biden administration still wants to extradite him based on nothing. The case is over. It's collapsed. There's nothing there. But his legal status doesn't change.
It doesn't change. It's horrific. I mean, remember, there have been any number of other reasons why the case should have collapsed. Remember when we found out that he was actually being spied on throughout the time that he was in the Ecuador embassy. His discussions with his lawyers was being spied on by the US government. That in itself should have thrown out the case against him. I mean, you're spying on his discussions with his attorney. So that didn't happen. Now you have this. Of course, basically the guy said, what I said that Julian is
everything
to do this. I made it all up. He never instructed me to hack into anything. So again, this was something that the United States brought in to the indictment. When they amended the indictment, they specifically brought this in to strengthen its ridiculous case that somehow Assange wasn't really a journalist, but he was a hacker. So again, and then of course we had in January when the court ruled against extradition. Again, he should have been released, and it just doesn't happen. I mean, it just goes on. I mean, Kafkaesque is, I think, too mild a term. Like whatever vindication you get, your status doesn't change.
Kafka couldn't even imagine this scenario. Right. No, it's just too crazy and too sick. Yep, okay. Right.
And he's in the worst. I mean, it's Belmarsh. I mean, this isn't he's in in some low security prison. I mean, this is in the worst possible prison that he has to endure this.
Yeah, where did the Watergate defendants? They went to Lompoc, which was basically a glorified golf club. Okay, yeah. You go out on the. I'm going to shoot some. I'm going to go on the course, shoot some golf, and have some lemonade. No, that's not Julian Assange.
No. This is Belmarsh. These are the worst scum of the earth are in Belmarsh. So it's so horrific. But as you say, nothing changes. Um, yeah. So my, my next one is the State Department. You remember how the Biden administration's position on immigration is that we have to address the root causes. We've got to go to the root causes, and so Kamala Harris went off to El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala to address the root causes of the migration. Um, with Trump had actually addressed that problem and said, you have to stay there. If you're asking for asylum, you make your application there. You don't come to the border. Anyways, but no, she has to deal with all the poverty, corruption, homophobia, violence against women, all these climate change. You name it. All the root causes are there in those countries. So she went there and dealt with that. And then this week, the United States announced a variety of sanctions against El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala because of corruption, lack of transparency, and whatnot. So you want these countries' cooperation, and then you impose sanctions on them. That's good, intelligent foreign policy making. 2 thumbs up.
Root. That solves the root.
That solves the root causes problems. We're going to hit them with sanctions.
They should have just done nothing on January 20th.
Right.
And then the root causes would work itself out. Okay. I mean, everybody, George and I have an academic background. The best way to get a career, and I mean tenure, everything. I'm working on the root causes of something.
Exactly.
Okay. That's a career.
Yeah.
That's a career.
Right,
the root causes of the French Revolution.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And I can milk that for 30 years. Easy. Okay. Because there's precedent. Plenty of people have already. Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Plenty of people. And you can just name any of them. I mean, you could say, climate change. Why not? I'm sure the climate was changing at the end of the 18th century. So that contributes.
Well, there was a bad patch for champagne. And, and the workers got upset, and the owner, this is a new interpretation of the origins of the French Revolution.
That's right.
You think I'm joking? People have come up with such stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay?
There was some kind of a disease that was rampaging through the grapevine, and that caused a huge champagne crisis. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Well, if she wants to work on the root causes, why doesn't she just move there? I mean, you would have all of the empirical evidence around you, okay? And that would solve Joe's problem. Because I don't know if you saw the piece in Politico, which of course has to come from the White House.
Yes.
They're sniping at her. They're sniping at her. Okay.
They are sniping at her because Biden's decrepitude is so apparent, and she's.
What'd you say, George? What'd you say?
That is weird and creepy. It's just bizarre. As is her vulture-like lurking in the background.
What are the root causes of the cackle? I mean, I think somebody should look into that.
Yes,
that would work. That works for me. You can get funding from somebody somewhere.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
The origins of the Harris cackle. Okay. Okay. Let's get on a serious note here. The Ukraine's foreign minister says NATO would defeat Russia in a Black Sea war. Okay. Right. And in the same week, I think maybe in the same news cycle, no coordination here, George. You have the Georgia, post-Soviet Georgia, claims that it won't pledge not to start a war in the Caucasus. Okay, that's transparency for you. What do the two have in common? The slippery slope and the moral hazard called NATO. Neither one would have said that if they didn't have the backing and cover of NATO. So again, you and I have tirelessly talked about this. This is a military alliance is an enabler of conflict. Enabler of conflict.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Johnson's reckless behavior last week in the Black Sea, entering Russia's territorial waters, the United States' participation in that, All of that is just egging on Ukraine. They say, hey, we've got, they've got our back. I mean, we have their support. Not to mention all the rhetorical flourishes. They're going to say, yeah, we have their support. And then you say, and the same goes for Georgia. The more NATO just keeps ratcheting up all of these condemnations of Russia, Russia's done the terrible things, and then, against Georgia and Ukraine, the more they encourage, yeah, great. And, you have to say NATO, which, basically has to have some rationale for continuing to exist. It needs a conflict, whether it's in the Caucasus or whether it's in Ukraine, so that it can say, Russia, is an existential threat. Give us more money immediately.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing all the time. NATO calls Russia a threat, and that signals to the Ukrainians and the Georgians, oh, the Russians are the threat. And then NATO turns around and says, see, the Georgians and Ukraine just said, but that's what you said. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. Yes,
Circle.
You're absolutely right. Moral hazard. That's the issue. And what we've known from World War I and World War II, it is, you get yourself into trouble when you start making commitments. You just go around, whether it's rhetorical or whatever, you get yourself into trouble. Don't make these stupid commitments. And that is exactly what NATO's doing.
You're right.
So next one is, Facebook, which seems to be encouraging people in snitching mode, is now apparently, which I haven't seen it yet, but they have this sort of pop-up screen saying that you may have been exposed to extremist content. The idea behind it is that you're supposed to snitch out somebody who you may think is becoming an extremist, becoming influenced by extremist thought, is reading extremist publications. So therefore they send these things out, and sort of I think Peter's been reading all kinds of websites about chihuahuas, and I think they're pretty extreme. I think I'm going to snitch him out. It is downright creepy.
Well, I mean, never underestimate Chihuahua extremism. We have to be.
I don't underestimate
that, okay, I mean, because I have personal experience here, but I think that I may avail myself of it. I may say, George, I think he's been watching Rachel Maddow. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. Becoming ever more extreme.
What it does is that it really insults the public sphere. I don't need Mark Zuckerberg to tell me what is extremist. Okay, I mean, this is just, it's so insulting to public discourse and freedom of speech. Okay, we hear speech, you and I and our viewers here hear speech we do not like at all, nonstop. But I'm not for banning it, and I'm not for snitching. What you do is you let it all comes out in the wash. If you're a good faith actor, okay, it will come out in the wash. Have a little bit more respect for individuals, okay? Right. Facebook is just this is just this awful phenomenon that we're dealing with, okay? And the thing is that for maybe our younger viewers won't understand it, but George and I growing up, we were wary of the state. We never were worried about corporation on this level, okay? Yeah. I mean, everybody's growing up, oil companies always had a bad rap, okay? Because they make a whole lot of money and they destroy the environment, okay? Okay, and that's fine. Okay, and then you and I and our cohort, the government has to rein it in, make sure they're environmentally friendly. I'm not for breaking them up or anything like that, but I mean, be responsible and pay people more in taxes. Okay, sure. But then you have the information to it's such a different experience than trying to get your hands around it, and too many people that are weak in government and probably are taking their money and being influenced by them. Just let this go unreined, okay? It's vile stuff for the public sphere.
Yeah, well, snitching is terrible, and what these corporations are now doing is they're trying to suck up to their political bastards. So they say, hey, look at we're doing, we're really keeping tabs on these domestic extremists. So don't come up with your antitrust moves. Don't come up with all your legislative plans to rein us in or regulate us. We're doing everything that you want. So it's the worst thing. I mean, they're just sucking up to their political masters just so that they can go on making their astronomical, ridiculous sums of money. But they're encouraging the worst of society, because snitching is the worst of worst human trait there is. Spying on your neighbors, reporting them to the police. We've seen, society
on your own,
destroyed by
on your own family,
exactly.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, maybe this was a bit repetitive, and obviously it's a thumbs down, but when we our discussion about the death of former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and please look it up, we did it recently. I did get a cursory review of the obituaries. It very much as I expected. It was lifestyle, who he knew, how he came up, and sometimes a paragraph went, well, kind of screwed up Iraq, but he was a great patriot and all that, and none of those articles addressed what you and I talked about.
Right.
How could someone like that be elevated to such a position to be able to commit such atrocious, make atrocious decisions and be simply a war criminal? Okay, but there's no other term for it. War criminal.
Right.
So again, there's no learning curve here. These elites will not learn and not change their ways because the status quo works to their advantage. Yeah. And the more people like you and I talk, the more they put us on the fringe. Okay. So unfortunately, folks, it's not if, it's when these people are going to start up again.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's what we happened. I mean, remember in 2008, Obama ran on this. He was supposedly the anti-war candidate. How many times did he repeat, well, I was against the Iraq war. I was against the Iraq war, which didn't matter very much because he was just simply a state senator at the time. Who cares what a state senator thinks? But he ran on that platform. And what does he do? First order of business, he hires Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State, the very Hillary Clinton who we continually condemn for supporting the Iraq war. And then he launches his attack on Libya 2 years later. No learning curve whatsoever. And even now, Rumsfeld's an easy target. He wasn't a terribly likable person. But what about Colin Powell? It was Colin Powell that sold that damn war. If he hadn't gone there to that UN Security Council and waved that stupid test tube around, it would have been much more difficult to sell the country on the Iraq war. Because people thought, whoa, he's a man of integrity. I don't know why anyone thought that, but he's a man, if he says it, we've got to take it seriously. And even years later, all that has been forgiven because Colin Powell hates Donald Trump. And, and whenever he gets the chance, Colin Powell denounces Donald Trump. And so that's fine. Everything is forgiven and forgotten. All the stuff that here's somebody who came up with this absolute rubbish about test tubes and all the nonsense he talked to the Security Council, when he of all people should have known better, because he supposedly, he was at the highest level of the military. He knew about intelligence. Therefore, he should have known that this is all nonsense. There's no evidence that. Well, I mean,
the sad thing is that since then he's essentially admitted all of that. Okay, and so he was a person of impeccable character. In fact, he was a person of very weak character because he was looking at his career and his place in history. Well, because of that weakness of character, we all know his place in history. And that, again, it comes around. It comes around. I mean, the fact that Donald Rumsfeld was not even, he didn't even come to terms with what he did, okay? At least a few of the other ones said, yeah, that we got it wrong, but there's no consequences for that.
No consequences. And then you're treated as a hero simply because you hate Donald Trump. Why are you a hero? You brought this debacle onto the Middle East. Trump didn't do that.
George, it takes courage to hate Donald Trump. Courage, lots of
exactly, yes.
On the same level of the guy storming the beaches of Iwo Jima, the same level of courage.
That's it. Yeah. And that's what he did. And so hey, as long as you hate Trump, you're good to go. And and whereas if you had at least a responsible political culture, you say, I don't care what your views on Donald Trump is. This is what matters. What you did, in selling that war, and you continue to justify it. I mean, after all, he continued to serve in the Bush administration, all those years. That's what matters. Who cares that you don't like Donald Trump?
For me, it's on the same level as that. You like a hazelnut or vanilla? I mean, I don't care one way or another.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
All righty, you're up.
Okay. So the next one I think is which, and this I think was brought up by our friend Dima, who drew our attention to an article in the Telegraph.
See tomorrow's crosstalk.
Yes, exactly. Because I didn't see this article, but so it was Dima who brought this to our attention. But the Con Coughlin is the defense editor of the Telegraph, which sounds like a very grand position. But in any case, he wrote this article a few days ago before Ukraine's abrupt dismissal from the UEFA Euro, and in which he was arguing that Ukraine, which had reached the quarterfinals of this tournament, is a blow, an absolute humiliation for Russia. He didn't present any evidence that the Russians felt humiliated by this, or and that they were angry about Ukraine's performance. But that was the whole thrust of the story. And he saw Ukraine's decent enough performance as a thumb in the eye of Putin. And he likened it to Jesse Owens in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, who famously won 4 gold medals, and Coughlin says that refuted Hitler's theory of Aryan supremacy. This is an argument of staggering stupidity, but what's really obnoxious about it is the idea of using sport to try to score political points, which is the kind of thing that you don't want to do, because if you try to do that, then you're going to find that you're going to lose that argument. I mean, for instance, the 1936 Olympics, Germany won far more medals than any other country. Are we supposed to take that as a vindication of the Nazi ideology? Mussolini's Italy won the World Cup in 1934 and 38. Is that a vindication of fascism? The Soviet Union in all of the Olympics always won more medals and more gold medals than the United States. Are we supposed to take that as a vindication of communism? So when you do this kind of thing of looking, trying to squeeze political points out of sport, you're going to end up looking like an idiot. And this guy, Con Coughlin, is a true idiot.
Okay, George, it looks like there's somebody at my door here. So we'll end it there. This is a good week for thumbs up, thumbs down. We're on Locals, so everyone type in thegaggle.locals.com, and we have a tip jar. We'd be very, very happy if you could overflow it for us.
Overflowing, yes, that's very good. And we have this program, which is for gagglers who want to join us in a conversation. We love talking to fellow gagglers. We always learn a lot. I hope you learn a lot too. So please take advantage of that. We're also on Rumble. Look us up there. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.